Kenya rises to power on the export of rhinoceroses. A Central African power bloc is formed, colonizing.
Block. Block.
A Central African power bloc is formed, colonizing.
Tuned bayonets.
Defend.
Isn't it obvious?
Obvious. Obvious.
Isn't it obvious?
What the hell are you guys playing?
It's a game we invented. It's called.
Invent. Invent.
It's a game we invented. It's called counterfactuals.
We postulate an alternate world that differs from ours in one key aspect, and then pose questions to each other.
It's fun.
Pose. Pose.
One key aspect, and then pose questions to each other.
It's fun. In a world where mankind is ruled by a giant intelligent beaver, what food is no longer consumed?
Consume. Consume.
What food is no longer consumed?
Mankind builds many dams to please the beaver overlord. The low-lying city of Copenhagen is flooded.
Flood. Flood.
The low-lying city of Copenhagen is flooded.
What do you do in the potty, wee-wee?
If I don't have to boom boom.
Boom. Boom.
If I don't have to boom boom.
One has to navigate a labyrinth of social nonsense before one can be fed here.
Fed. Fed.
Before one can be fed here. One has to navigate a labyrinth of social nonsense before one can be fed here.
Really? I assumed an establishment called the Cheese...
Establishment. Establishment.
Really? I assumed an establishment called the Cheese... I'm curious as to why we're not eating alone.
They can't function without me. I'm the...
Function. Function.
They can't function without me. I'm the...
Our little, how shall we call it, rebel alliance.
Oh, I never identified with the Rebel Alliance.
Rebel. Rebel.
Oh, I never identified with the Rebel Alliance. Oh, I never identified with the Rebel Alliance. And despite their tendency to build Death Stars, I've always...
Tendency. Tendency.
And despite their tendency to build Death Stars, I never identified with the Rebel Alliance. And despite their tendency to build Death Stars, I've always been more of an Empire man.
Empire. Empire.
I've always been more of an Empire man. And I'd thank you to do the same.
Real silence?
Silence. Silence.
Real silence? I think we need to start entertaining the possibility that the shaming could go on for years.
Well, if that's the case, Penny will have to get satellite TV and...
Satellite. Satellite.
Well, if that's the case, Penny will have to get satellite TV and...
Put up with you.
Kinda sorta hadda?
Well, I didn't agree with him.
Well, you defended me, right?
I tried
Defend. Defend.
with him.
Well, you defended me, right?
I tried.
See? With the grain.
Grain. Grain.
With the grain.
I was homesick.
The highlight of the evening was when you showed us your
Highlight. Highlight.
The highlight of the evening was when you showed us your
I brought Amy here to show her some of the work I'm doing.
It's very impressive for theoretical work.
Theoretical. Theoretical.
It's very impressive for theoretical work.
Do I detect a hint of condescension?
I'm sorry, was I being too subtle?
Subtle. Subtle.
I'm sorry, was I being too subtle? I'm sorry, was I being too subtle? I meant compared to the real-world applications of
Application. Application.
I meant compared to the real-world applications of neuro...
Are you suggesting the work of a neurobiologist like Babinski could ever rise to the significance of a
Significance. Significance.
like Babinski could ever rise to the significance of a physicist like Clark Maxwell or Dirac?
I'm stating it outright. Babinski eats Dirac for breakfast and...
Breakfast. Breakfast.
Babinski eats Dirac for breakfast and the neurological substrates that subserve global information processing, which is required for all cognitive reasoning.
Cognitive. Cognitive.
Which is required for all cognitive reasoning, including scientific inquiry, making my research ipso facto prior in the Ordo Cognoscendi.
Prior. Prior.
So prior in the Ordo Cognoscendi. So prior in the Ordo Cognoscendi. That means it's better than his research, and by extension, of course, yours.
Extension. Extension.
Research, and by extension, of course, yours.
There being no objections? The motion carries.
Motion. Motion.
The motion carries.
I think Sheldon really misses Amy.
You should lend him your copy of Bombay Badonkadonks.
Lend. Lend.
You should lend him your copy of Bombay Badonkadonks.
A group of cats is a clouder or a glaring.
Okay, yeah,
That's
fine.
the kind of thing you ought to know. Now that we...
Ought. Ought.
kind of thing you ought to know. Now that we... You didn't break up. She dumped you.
She didn't dump me. It was mutual.
Mutual. Mutual.
Dump me. It was mutual.
Not something you kids whipped up in a lap.
No, she's real.
Did they sin?
Sin. Sin.
Did they sin? He said that you were pining for a young lady.
Oh, that's preposterous. I'm not pining over anyone.
Pine. Pine.
I'm not pining over anyone.
I think we can both agree it's creepy.
I do not agree. Cats make wonderful companions.
Companion. Companion.
Cats make wonderful companions.
Thinks you might be losing your mind over me. As a neurobiologist, I was curious.
Well, rest assured, I am in full possession of my faculties.
Possession. Possession.
Well, rest assured, I am in full possession of my faculties. All right, but you're not fooling me. Whenever you say we have to talk, it means you...
Whenever. Whenever.
Whenever you say we have to talk, it means you...
A perfectly unique young woman. You two are definitely not suited for each other.
Definitely. Definitely.
You two are definitely not suited for each other. So I didn't have to end it for you.
Amy, after consideration,
Consideration. Consideration.
Amy, after consideration, I believe we may have acted rashly. I propose we resume our relationship and...
Resume. Resume.
I propose we resume our relationship and... I believe we may have acted rashly. I propose we resume our relationship and attempt to resolve our differences.
Resolve. Resolve.
And attempt to resolve our differences. We deal with the fact that my mother does not approve of you?
I do. Find being cast in the...
Cast. Cast.
I do. Find being cast in the...